just take your time a little bit more. Again, I didn't have to do that business. My ego just got in the way of like, oh wow, I made some money on these deals. Now I can make it a, multi-million dollar company.
Yeah. What were the biggest lessons you learned in watching the gap funding company go sideways?
I think it's having standards. When I started lending people, I didn't put a perfect avatar in place. If I put a perfect avatar in place, I would say...
Which goes against like what you already knew.
Yeah, right? It's like an experienced investor, done enough flips, has some capital behind him. He may not have the capital to do the down payment, all of that, but he's got some capital work, to play with. They're not their own contractor. The ones that were the 3 of the big deals we got screwed on, they were their own contractors. They would ask for draws. Oh, my guys are waiting there. They need to get paid. Can I get that draw? And now it's like, no, you need to have third-party contractors that are doing the work, so we know they know what they're doing, and we know where the money's going. It's not just going to some hourly guys that are supposedly doing. That's actually what happened on one of the deals. Is they were taking pictures of a corner of the rooms. They would paint the corner of the room and put flooring in the corner of the room, take a picture, and they would say that the whole room was done. Just stuff like that, just putting together the perfect avatar and not deviating from it. Because
these are guys that were like buying your TV as well, or just...
No. We've funded some deals for our TV clients, but no, these are people outside.
Got it.
So for those of you funding deals, if they've never done a deal before, huge liability. They have no idea what they're doing, right? Even if they say they do.
Yeah.
That's number one. If they're their own contractor, that's a no-no. And make sure you're in a price point that if you take the property back, it's not a huge nut. We've got a couple of $500,000 plus properties that we're paying, big mortgage payments on, and then we're having to fork over another $80,000 to do the renovations to get it where it needs to be. And it's just like, what was I doing? Yeah. Why did I approve these deals? So.
Well, it made sense at the time.
For sure.
And again, that's like the lessons I'm learning, right? Like in the 40s is like, oh, like we don't have to tackle every single thing. We don't have to say yes to every opportunity. And then again, considering the downside is like, okay, what's the risk if this goes wrong? Because I don't have a risk calculator back here. It's just like, that sounds like a great opportunity. Let's go. So we're building up that part of the brain.
It's hard to know who to trust too, because good salespeople will sell you that they're good people. If you had a conversation with this one lady that stole $80,000 from us, you would be like, there's no way she would steal $80,000 from you. Just the sweetest lady that was like, oh my gosh, we have great plans for this property. And it's like, I kind of let the emotions get involved of like, okay, I want to help this gal. They've got good margins, but they've never done a deal. That should have been my number one thing is they haven't done a deal. And that's why a lot of lenders, when they vet people, it's like, have you done at least 5 deals? I think that's usually their minimum.
Yeah, you typically see 5 on the application. We had this conversation in our office. And they were talking about like, we don't like to sell to seasoned buyers because seasoned buyers are really good negotiators, right?
And they're not going to pay as much too, right?
They're not going to pay as much. And they were talking about like, well, isn't it wrong to sell to someone who may be overpaying? Right? This is like an ethical conversation, right? And I challenged them on this only because I was once that stupid buyer who thought I can remodel an entire house for your 15, 20K. But at the same time, you don't know what their carpenter experience is. You don't know if they got family that's gonna be doing this work. Maybe they're just gonna build sweat equity into it, right? But we tend to pass this judgment of like, oh, this guy, there's no way he can buy it at this price. He doesn't know what he's doing. And like, maybe we shouldn't sell it to him. It's like, I think there's a question of how dare you tell this guy he's incapable of doing this. Because like, if you ever sold a deal, like, oh, there's, it's not a good deal, and you see what they're done when they're done with it, it's like, wow, it's amazing what they've done with it. But our sales team at times trying to pass judgments like, oh, there's no way they'd ever pay this much. Things that kind of go through my mind when we're saying like, you lose money in your first deal. It's like, there are people that lose money in their first deal. There are people that knock it out. You just never know.
And if they lose the money, that's a learning lesson. Either they won't do it again, or they realize they're not fit for the industry.
Yeah. I mean, that was me. My first few years, right, is in working with other people that were flipping houses. It was just a given, right, that you lost money in your first deal. Like, that's no longer a given now. Well, it might be now, but
shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. But the reality is, there's a lot of people on their first flip. They don't know how to budget a flip. They don't know how to manage contractors. They don't understand the finances. They don't know how maybe hard money works, right? They may not read that maybe there's a 3-month minimum. There's like a lot of things that can go wrong.
I think there's two things. One, the contractors, obviously. I mean, even if they bid 50, if it goes wrong, it's
going to go over budget. Just assume it's going to go over budget and over time.
Yeah, for sure. And then, oh God, what was the other thing I was just thinking? Oh, the calculations. Like someone sent me a message the other day. They're like, I've got this property locked up for $100,000. I think I can sell it for $150. I'm going to put $20,000 into it. I can make make an easy $30,000. And it's like, dude, real estate commissions, holding costs. Like, I had to educate this guy a little bit. And I went back and forth with him. I'm like, okay, you just don't understand, obviously.
Or just send him to one of your students.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting how people think real estate's easy, and they just there's so many different parts to it that they have to be educated in order to make it work.
When you watch HGTV, it does look pretty easy.
It does look easy, yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And that is the guy that's going to pay the most. Right? Again, the guy that's flipping 10 houses a month is not my avatar. That guy is skilled, has been through, he's been scarred, and he knows how to negotiate, and he doesn't need it. He just doesn't need it. So, again, it's been 12 months. What is the biggest lesson you've learned since you were on the show last?
Biggest lesson. Well, I think going back to the funding business, I don't know, maybe just planning a little bit better. Like, again, I'm a ready, fire, aim kind of guy, but I think if I would have just sat back, thought about it a little bit more, and then probably advised with people who did lending, I think they would have said, don't do this unless X, Y, Z, right? So I think probably advising from people that have been there and done that. And I've been trying to do that more and more with a lot of things that are new that I'm putting into place. And so I think that's probably the biggest lesson is maybe just take your time a little bit more. And, again, I didn't have to do that business. My ego just got in the way of like, oh, wow, I made some money on these deals. Now I can make it a, multi-million-dollar company, which I think I could still do. But I got set back quite a bit with these deals that I'm trying to clean up.
Well, there's that question like, how do I scale this? You see these memes, right? Like every entrepreneur, how do I monetize this? How do I scale this? Right? And we have this habit, like we've already had other successful businesses. Obviously, we can just extend our genius to this, and then we don't actually think things through, and that's when we get burned. Yeah,
and then I took away so much time and energy to that company, the new funding company, that I could have been scaling the TV company, which is 1,000 times easier.
Right.
We find clients, we get them results, we blow them up on TV, and it doesn't take a lot of our time. In fact, it's rewarding because people will text us, oh man, our first month we did 3 deals, we did 5 deals, and the feedback we get from them is energizing. And the feedback I was getting back from the gap funding people was like, my contractor walked away with 10 grand. Can you lend me some more money? Those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, a little bit more soul crushing.